with civil, preponderance of the evidence, PE or something that Curtis writes, gets all confused with it. Then he says it's a horror because it's preponderance of the evidence. If they say preponderance of evidence, which they do a lot, then he's stuck. That's the trouble with those phrases. You got already preponderance. That's fast enough for no matter what comes before or after. Okay. And I have to say that they had judges' charges at 260 was the contest. They did it for the first 5 years that Arnold and I were in it, and then after we finished our stint, they decided to drop the charge and make it a 230 opinion. You're right. But the record for the charge when they had it in the contest is I hold one error for 5 minutes. I have no short forms. I had the preponderance, but otherwise, I just got so familiar with it I could write it at any speed. But,
and that's why you think
so that's why, all this short form. I mean, see, the trouble with the teachers in the school is that they're oriented to try to get the student up to 150. After that, they're lost. They don't know what to do. They don't know that it's a lot of dictation practice. They think maybe short forms, it is something. And some people get it faster than others. So that's always a puzzle. But I know some people have aptitude, like this guy Joshua. He had an aptitude. So he got it faster than anyone else with the same work, with the same practice, with the same effort. That's the way it is. There was one person in all the hundreds that took it when Arnold and I were taking it up, there was one person who had that sort of aptitude, even more than he had. This guy was writing 200 after 1 year in the class, and half the other students were lawyers. They were all writing 120, 130. Hey, this guy, Bob Shelley, is phenomenal. Reads back everything. Just had to do whatever it takes. So he turned out to be a very good reporter, and this was about 1941. So by 1949 he had been around and he'd been in the Army and all that. And he took the exam statewide, 800 took it, came out first. Arnold came out second, I came out third in the whole state. So that's how good this guy was. He could write anything and he wrote everything out. He didn't have any short forms, he was just a good writer, a good fingering. Then he gets appointed to the Brooklyn Supreme Court. He's there about 10 or 15 years, and they have a lot of Italian judges there. So they liked him a lot. And eventually they made him the chief reporter after he was there about 15 years. He also, on the side, before he became an official, he had an agency that he ran himself. So he had contacts with a lot of lawyers, Italian lawyers. So it's called Certified Reporting Agency. So he used to do that. Then when he took the job, he told him, he says, I'm not dropping the agency. I have a few people who will run it themselves, and I'll be in the court doing it, but I'll also do what you want. And he had friends among the judges. To give you an idea, one of the judges was assigned to Riverhead to take condemnation cases, because the judges out there didn't want to take them. They're hard and they're this and that. So they send out this judge, he's Italian, so he tells Bob Shelley, he says, I want you to come with me to take the thing. He says, all right. Meanwhile, the chief judge out there writes him a note, don't bring any reporter because we have our own reporters. The reporters want to make that money. Everything is transcribed in condemnation. Anything to do with real estate, you got to have the transcript. He took Shelley out there. He got the judges mad because the chief reporter said, you're depriving us of thousands of dollars here. So the chief judge said, that's right, we don't want this guy here. So this judge who went out there, Italian judge, he says, he's my reporter, that's it. So there was nothing to be done. So he wasn't the too popular guy. He also was a little bit of a ladies' man, even though he was married and had a family. So after about 10 years, a couple of the female reporters complained that he was harassing them sexually. They brought the complaint to the appellate division. The appellate division chief judge at that time was a woman. So he got hold of a very good lawyer, and the lawyer inquired, and the lawyer told him, he said, look, you're going to get killed because this woman is out to get you, the chief judge. And you're guilty anyway. What are you harassing these people for? He said, well, just my nature and this. He said, you're not going to get away with it. So he said, well, what do you advise? He said, I advise you resign. So before they had the hearing, he resigned, so there's no reason for the hearing. He's out. So whether there was merit to it, he claimed there was no merit to it, but there was plenty of merit to it. So then he went back to his agency. He's still making $150,000 a year from the agency. I mean, he was making all sorts of money. He died about 10 or 15 years ago. But I remember him as being tremendous aptitude. No matter how hard you worked and were at it, you couldn't do better than he. So that's aptitude. So he was the one guy, one out of thousands. Everybody coming out of schools, and a lot of them had good aptitude also, but not quite that good. Like this Charlie Foster, he was another guy. He was a Greg rider, like the way and I. Then he switched when he was about 19. He was a clerk. Before we got into the Second World War, they had a big contingent at the Brooklyn Army Base. So he was a civilian clerk there. But he was a smart fellow, and he would catch on to how to write letters to the Pentagon and how to do this all tricky stuff. So the colonels down there, the captains, all saw that, gee, he knows this stuff, and I don't know it. It's complicated, how to second endorsements and all that. He knew it all. So they kept promoting him. He was a high clerk. Then he gets drafted. Took him right into Brooklyn Army Base. Because they said that this guy can do the work of about 10 soldiers. He knows everything. Knows how to do all the correspondence. He was terrifically helpful to all the captains and the colonels and the majors. So he did. So while he's in the army, he switches over from Greg to stenotype, and he starts taking up stenotype. Then the war is over, and he's discharged. So he goes to Pace College. They had a course there. He's taking it in stenotype, and he's working on his stenotype. So he had a pretty good reputation of being a good reporter, and he took the Supreme Court exam, came out like third on the list. He was very good on statewide. They appointed him to the Queen's Supreme Court. So there were a couple of wise guy reporters who thought they were the fastest around. So they used to challenge him in Queens, and the other reporters said, all right, well, let's give you a rump. So they'd pick up a New York Times, all right, ready? They'd rip it off, He'd read it right back to this other guy. Forget it. He couldn't get that. So then they started the contest, so he wasn't interested because he didn't have the wherewithal to go out to Minnesota and to different places where it was. Then, on the last year that Arnold was in, Arnold finishes 3, then I took 3, and the last year of mine was in New York. So he says, oh, it's in New York, I'll enter. So I said, look, you're going to be against all of the state champions, the Texas champion, Massachusetts, Illinois, California. He says, well, I've been practicing. Comes out second. He beat every state champion in the United States. He hardly practiced.
Who was first?
Charlie Foster. I was. So, I mean, he came from nowhere. So everyone asked me, even the New Yorkers who thought they would do well, who kept saying over the years, I'm not entering because I'm not going to Minnesota, I'm not going to California, I don't have, but when it's New York, they said, now I'm entering, you watch. So some of them did pretty well. They came out like 7th or 8th. They're not winning. And there was one guy, Albert Stern, cocky guy, who was in the Supreme Court, a very good writer. So he says, I'll go in, I'll wipe it off. So for years after that, he said, I never could beat you. I never could beat you. You couldn't beat me. You came out 4th, 5th. But it was just that we made a habit of being accurate, in addition to being fast. But anyway, so that was Charlie Foster. He had a good talent. But you know what his capacity was, what his big point was? He could concentrate and not going to let that get away, and tremendous sweat is pouring out. He's not going to have it drop, So at the end, you got a lot out of it. I mean, the dictation practice is to taking at your top accurate speed, effort, putting in effort. If I give you that, if someone can take 200, I'm always giving it to 150, he's never going to get more than 200. But if he can take 200 and I give him a 195, it's a tremendous effort to hold on accurately. That's what gets you the speed. It did take a lot of it. So we just fell into it. It really was my father's idea of how to get Greg shorthand speed, is we just picked up all those principles and applied them to stenotype, and they all worked. And even there were a couple of Greg shorthand writers, champion writers, who wrote articles in a magazine on how they did this. Don't go for short forms in shorthand. And shorthand. This guy says, I tried a couple of short forms and I got slaughtered on the contest after I won the contest the year before, and then I dropped about 5 words because I didn't really know it well enough to instantly write it and forget about it. So it's the same, whether it's Greg or not, but then they don't teach any Greg. You can't find anybody that teaches Greg. I think the Greg company is either in bankruptcy, it's a part of the, some big publishing house, I forget the name of it. See, that was it was all a historical thing. From about 1880 on, manual shorthand, which was unheard of in any high school in the United States, suddenly there's a demand from the society, from business. We got the Industrial Revolution starting, and you got the oil barons and these, and they had 1,000 managers, intermediate managers, and everyone wanted their secretary to dictate. He said, I got to send out 1,000 letters to 1,000. There were no telephones. It worked. Okay. Ready?